Welcome everyone. My name is Darshan Doshi and welcome to the Zildjian Talk, episode 11. As you know, I'm very excited today. Firstly, thank you everyone for the great response after announcing the poster of today's episode. I've got too many questions to ask Larnell today, and I hope 60 minutes is enough for us to get all that info from him. But I'm very happy that we have the incredible Larnell Lewis in the house, and it's going to be a fun session. So do not leave. Get your coffee, get some tea, and it's going to be a fun session. So. Frankly, Larnell doesn't need any introduction, but for people who do not know him, Larnell Lewis is a Grammy Award-winning musician, composer, producer, and educator. Based in Toronto, he has established himself among the most diverse and in-demand drummers in the world. Since 2012, Larnell has been playing with three-time Grammy Award-winning band that everybody knows. Snarky Puppy, yes, and Larnell leads successful ensembles of his own and has toured the globe with highly reputable contemporary musicians, including the master Quincy Jones, Gregory Potter, Lala Hathaway, Jacob Collier, John Scofield, Pat Metheny, and the list goes on. It's some of the great artists out here in this list. Larnell's immense talent, fierce creativity, and evolving musical style keep him in demand as a collaborator for artists internationally. In June 2018, Larnell independently released his debut album, In the Moment. The project explores Larnell's deep connection to jazz, fusion, and his Afro-Caribbean roots. His latest release, Relive the Moment, is a reimagining of his compositions from In the Moment, with new drum performances recorded at Jukasa Studios. In addition to his success as a recording artist, performer, and director, Larnell is a dedicated music educator. He is a professor of music at Humber College, Canada's most respected institution for post-secondary music education. So, without any further ado, let's invite the master, Larnell Lewis.
Hey,
Hey,
what's happening? How's it
how are
going?
you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. We are very excited out here.
Yes. Good to be here. Hey, everybody.
So, firstly, welcome, sir, to this the Zildjian Talk. A big thank you from Zildjian India and myself for accepting this invitation and
Mm,
giving us your time.
absolutely. I'm so glad to be here. It's a pleasure to meet you, to hear your drumming as well. You sound amazing. I checked a
Thank
bit of your
you.
stuff as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Uh, Obviously, we're going to talk. We've had so many questions about obviously Snarky Puppy and your music that has recently released. But before we go there, uh, firstly, I want to know about your relation with Zildjian symbols. We are here on Zildjian Talk, and we would want you to tell us about how did you get into Zildjian symbols, and if you can also give us a brief idea about your current setup.
Absolutely. For me, how I got into Zildjian, I joined the Zildjian family, I believe it was 2010, but I had met everybody in the Zildjian, at least a few people on the team, and connected in 2008 at the Montreal Drum Festival. Um, Prior to that, I had seen one of the biggest pushes for me to have a good understanding of what the family was about and what the company was about. On a station called CNN, there was like a I guess you could say a half an hour documentary on the history of Zildjian cymbals. And I actually used that as a part of a school project. And so from doing
Wow.
the research at that time, I was in middle school, I found out already, okay, you know what? This company's been around for a while. A lot of my favorite drummers are playing the cymbals. And you know what? I dig it. And actually, my first ride cymbal was a Zildjian cymbal. It's a 20-inch K custom ride, which is one that I've seen quite a few posters of Dennis Chambers playing, and he's one of my top 5. And so, yeah, that's the start.
Using on tour as well as on the recording scene out there?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm actually behind my kit right now, so I can show you a little bit. So it varies from time to time. Not everything here is exactly what I use, but I'll show off what I got going on here a little bit. So let's get this camera switched. Boom. Okay, so clutchless right now. I have a set of 14-inch session hats, K custom session hats. Of course, you know, I love my cluster crashes. 16-inch cluster crash. When I'm usually gigging, I love the 18 and 20-inch cluster crashes. Those are my favorite.
Nice.
Another favorite of mine is the K Custom Special Dry Trash Crash. Now, I have here currently the 19 and the 21, but both of them have rivets in it.
Beautiful.
So I'm in love with these. And here is actually one that really near and dear to my heart. I haven't gigged with it much, but it's a 23-inch Special Dry ride from that series. And this is actually one of the prototypes, which is why there are no labels on it.
Yes.
And of course, one of my favorites as well is 18-inch Oriental China Trash. And the cymbal setup generally is you know, oh, I mean, I got a little splash here, and I also have a stack in the second splash cymbal position. But the big thing for me is to have a variety of cymbals that can move through as many genres as possible. Now, one might say, well, a crash is a crash, and a ride is a ride, and, you know, a stack is a stack, and hi-hats are hi-hats, but the blending of these cymbals are important. So matching my ride cymbal and my hi-hats are key to the sound, because if I'm doing a lot of stick work between those two, I would love the sound, you know, between those two items to be blended well, right? So if I got really bright hi-hats and a really dull ride cymbal, or vice versa, while it might sound interesting, in a recording, it's not going to really work. And of course, when it comes to my stacks, the one that people ask about, the two I should say, are my splash stack, which is on top, it's a trash former, and on the bottom, it's a 10-inch A custom EFX. And my stack to my right, which is the really popular one, it's 3 cymbals. So from, I guess you could say from bottom to top, the bottom cymbal is a 14-inch Oriental Chime Trash. And then I have a 12-inch Gen 16 cymbal, right? So that's like those low volume cymbals.
Yes.
And then I have a 16-inch K EFX on top of that. And so that combination, and specifically those cymbals, because I've tried it with others and it works, but for some reason, maybe for how long they've been in my cymbal bag or how long I've been traveling with them, they just work so well together. And so, yeah, just having cymbals that usually are open, like my ride cymbal, it's crashable. So I could go through, let's say, the main crash, the ride cymbal, and my secondary crash is my 3 open sounds, clean sounds. I have my 2 stacks, and then I have, like I mentioned, the trash crash with 2 rivets in it on my left. Kind of like that Dave Weckl, you know, like he used to use an Azuka when he was with Zildjian on the left with a couple of rivets in it, you know. But yeah,
Yes.
it's usually about like a, you know, 7 or 8 cymbal setup, but that's the rundown.
Beautiful. When it comes to stacks, obviously, again, we had a lot of questions from a lot of drummers out here in India that, is there any kind of a specification, why do you use those low volume in between, or it was just like you tried it out and it kind of worked, the sound worked for you, or how do you go about choosing that right stack?
So the stack that I mentioned earlier with the low volume cymbal and the China, and man, I was in a bind before I had to leave for tour. And I went through all my cymbals and I just said, okay, does that work? 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 I was like, I got to get to the airport quick. I got to go on tour at Snarky. I need a proper stack. And at the time I was still, developing my cymbal setup with the band. A big part of that is to make sure that I don't have cymbals that sustain too long or interrupt or get in the way of a lot of the synth and keyboard sounds, right? And because everybody has pedals, everyone's got options, and so we need the effect of the crash, like the hit, but the sustain of it shouldn't be too long. And what I would say as far as the science behind the stacks, I know for sure the Transformers do a great job of hitting the markers of that science, which is not getting to the point where the cymbal profiles are too close. Like, for example, let's say with a set of hi-hats, if you were to take them and put them together, and you're like, oh yeah, these are, this is a stack, there's two cymbals, kind of, sort of, right? And the other way, right? But what's happening is that the cymbal is touching in a couple of awkward areas, right? So you want to look at where the cymbals are touching. That's the first thing. Second is, if the bell profiles are a little too similar, then that might make it challenging as well for where the cymbals are touching. And that's why I like the Transformer. It gives you those 3 points of contact where, whether it's on top or on the bottom, and it does not match the profile of the cymbal physically. So it just allows more, I guess it just allows a better chance of getting that stack sizzle, right? Without it sounding like a pair of hi-hats that you like stored away. And then the last one is, at least one of the cymbals being a little more raw or trashy sounding or thin would also help.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's an amazing advice for especially young drummers who are trying to put stacks together. Here it is from the master himself. So coming to the ride, obviously you work on so many albums, and especially with Snarky and your own new setup. Again, any specific qualities that you look out in a ride cymbal when you choose, and why do you go for that particular quality in that particular spectrum of music?
That's a great question. So when it comes to my ride cymbal, and I will say for sure, there's the cymbal, but there's also the stick. So remember, like, if you're, struggling with your cymbals, or check your sticks, maybe check the stick tip, check the, the length, the material, like, just take a look at all those things. And if you can, try at least one or two other options just to see what kind of sound you get out of your cymbals. Because you might actually have what you need, and you might just need to, assess other things. But the ride cymbal, again, getting into jazz in my like mid to late teens, I was able to, start checking out a bunch of other ride cymbal sounds. And, I'm in love with jazz now, wasn't so much when I was in my teenage years. And what I loved about jazz music, or what I do love about jazz music, is that when you're playing a ride cymbal, the drummer has this ability to push the momentum of the music forward. And that's coming from the stick definition and the cymbal, having this beautiful sound. But then when they want to crash it and explode, it's just massive. Right. So I was like, okay, I need that crashable sound, right? Something that's nice, and it just sounds like a bigger crash. But I have the stick definition as well, and a bell that is going to cut through music, right? But not cut through in a way where it's too brilliant, too aggressive. I still want that I still want that old, 50s, 60s K, kind of like the vintage cymbals that people love. But yes, I just need something that still cuts through the music enough. So a bell that cuts reasonably, stick definition from the ride cymbal, like when I'm playing on the bow, and then the crashability of the cymbal as well, so it blends with the other cymbals. Also, in a way, when I'm in high school, I had the opportunity to play orchestral music, right? To play in like concert bands and wind ensembles. And so using mallets across my cymbals in a very orchestral way is a big part of my sound. And so being able to, and you can swell any ride cymbal you want, but not all of them sound amazing, or not all of them fit for the music you're playing. And so a lot of the genres I'm playing, I sometimes need that like low, raw, dark, aggressive sound. So something
Yeah.
dark, crashable, stick definition where it gets out of the way, ride cymbal that has like the bell that has some definition to it, and clarity overall from that cymbal. And I've been digging on 22-inch cymbals. I feel like that size works for me, and I get a lot of the tone I'm looking for. But yeah, like I feel like my ride cymbals and my hi-hats are like, trying to pair like a set of sneakers and a set like a hat, right? Like you're just trying to get your clothing matched together a certain way. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for in my ride cymbal.
Awesome. Uh, Again, sir, all the videos and everything that you post and all the stuff that you've done, the way you use these symbols and the tones, the colors, the precision of playing those symbols at the right place at the right time. How does that happen? It's like the minute you touch anything and the minute that thing is played, it feels like it was meant to be in the song exactly that way. Like, how is that possible?
Man, thank you. I appreciate that. What I would say is my use of cymbals and drums is heavily influenced by my the instincts, I guess you can say, that are built from just an understanding of music as far as people playing together, or an arranger's perspective of music, right? Like I like to think of it as a string quartet. So when you think of a string quartet, or you think of an ensemble where there's more than 3 or 4 people, playing an instrument that might be one line or one note at a time, right? They have to play their line. So it kind of moves on its own as a melody line. But when you put another one together, there is that harmony. And they might drift and they might come together and move wherever they got to go. So the sounds of my cymbals, like I mentioned earlier, just trying to have a nice, like a balanced range that allows me to speak at low volumes, but still be aggressive at a higher volume.
Right.
It's also just about hearing music from a perspective like a producer of, hey, if the bass plays that rhythm instead of the bass drum, or if the guitar player plays that rhythm instead of the keyboard player, or if the horns play this rhythm, right? So I think about it where there are rhythms that I'm listening for, and I'm going to choose a color or a sound to express that rhythm at that time. So it's about thinking about like what's happening in the full picture, thinking like a producer, it would be great if the trumpets played that rhythm coming up to echo what's happening in the melody because of that sound of that instrument. So I might say, okay, trumpets are coming up. What cymbal to me has the same kind of aggressiveness or timbre or feel of a trumpet, or what feels like a distortion guitar? Because what ends up happening is in the music, maybe usually an instrument might fill that void in that way, right? So sonically speaking, I'm trying to fill that void in a way where you would expect that instrument to show up, or you'd expect that sound to show up, and I'm just mimicking a sound similar to that. And so that's kind of my perspective on, when it comes to pulling sounds out of the drums for those kinds of musical moments.
Wow. Uh, Coming to the Zildjian Live episode that you were featured on, and man, that was an incredible drum solo that you took in that song. If you can just talk us about how that overall experience was, firstly with to play with Ghost Note at the East West Studios with so many drummers out there, and specifically, if you can talk about the drum solo, how did you plan this, or it is everything at the moment?
Everything was totally improvised. Like, so so people get a good understanding of what happened that day. Well, number one, that Zildjian live experience was a dream come true. And especially as a composer's dream come true. To be able to play my composition with a band like Ghost Note in a studio atmosphere performance setting, you know, where I'm being featured as an instrumentalist, but as a composer. And then they put their spin on the song, and it was just, you know, it was just unbelievable. And especially as a fan of Zildjian Cymbals and the brand, for what they had done in like previous years with Zildjian Day, right? I had
Yeah.
seen some of those like videos of like Steve Gadd and Vinny Colaiuta and like Dennis and, you know, all these cats who were just slaying in these videos, and to actually be a part of a video series, you know, that was just a dream come true. You know, I'd always wished that I had an opportunity to be on one of the Zildjian days, you know, be at the festival and have that
Yeah.
open solo moment to express myself. And I got it, you know, that day. And it was just amazing. And so, for context for everybody, you go in, you're there the day before, you do a rehearsal, you run the song with the band, right? So I heard a demo where they sent me their rehearsal take, you know, approved the arrangement, and showed up to do the rehearsal and play with them. Now, I had my solos, and, you know, you experiment, you try things out, but anything that happened in that video was not what I was doing in the rehearsal. And to actually add even more context, each drummer had the opportunity to do 2 takes, right?
Yeah.
So that was my second take. So I was like, so I was warmed up with the band. However, the drum solo I did for that first take was completely different. I was just like, I was super nervous, right? I was just like, okay, I got to get the song right. Okay, like Thomas Pridgeon's in the room, Tony Royster's in the room, Sean Chops Wright's in the room, Omar Hakib's in the room, like just tons of Aaron Spears in the room, Kaz is in the room, Nikki, like everybody's in the room. And I'm just like, okay, I gotta play. And then Sput says, all right, Larnell, I want you to do an open solo off the top. So I do an open solo off the top, then we play the tune, then I do my drum solo. You know, Sarah Thauer is there as well, really good friend of mine. And, you know, I did the first take, and we're like, okay, you know, that was good, let's do a second one. So for me, it was like, all right, I did the first take, got it down. Now let's just have fun. Let's have fun.
Right.
Let's just relax. You know, you've done it already. It's in the bag. This, we'll see what happens. And so the energy just went through the roof, you know, because it was so much more playful. I felt like I was connected to the band even more. I felt like I kind of had my surroundings. I kind of, you know, I knew what the drums felt like with people in the room, with the band, with my headphones set up, with all of this stuff, with the cameras moving around. It's like, all right, I've done it once, which means I've been there before. So now we can relax. And that, yeah, the moment, the drum solo, completely improvised. I decided on that version or that take to use more space, right? To just hop in and let things happen, like play the wing nuts on the cymbals, you
Yes.
know, just to kind of be completely free. And I'm really glad that that was the one that was selected.
Yes. Like, not just like the chops part of it, but so musically there, dynamically there, metric modulation, just amount of required. It's amazing. It almost feels like it's a planned. At least just the format is planned, but it's just perfect for the song and for the way you played it. Incredible.
Thank you. Somebody asked, what song is this about? This is a song of mine called Change Your Mind. And I have a version on my album, or both my albums, but Robert Sput Seawright of Ghost Note actually arranged it for Zildjian Live. And they knocked it completely out the park and made me feel really comfortable about it. But yeah, I love soloing. I've done a lot of soloing in my life, and soloing in a way where I had to understand how to build my solo like a composition, like a song, you know, moving from moment to moment, but referencing things and learning how to like expand and contract.
Beautiful, beautiful. Going back a little bit in time, if you can talk us about your mentors and your teachers growing up, and just a little bit about, a lot of people have asked about practice routine on, especially when you were growing up as a kid, because I think you started at the age of 2. Uh,
Yes.
how did that practice routine, and now coming to today's time, how are you practicing around with concepts and formulas? So a little bit about
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. So the main, like for me, it was in waves in terms of my practice time. There was obviously the time where I had to learn and understand coordination, learn and understand how to play with other musicians, understand my role as a drummer, and even that was changing because as I grew older, I started to understand more of what the responsibility was of a drummer in not only a band, generally speaking, but just in the context that I was in at the time, because it could always
Right.
change. But I guess like in my early teens, there was a stint. There was like a very short stint where I think it was about 7 or 8 months where I actually practiced for 3 hours a day every day. And what that looked like was I came home from school and I would practice for 3 hours. And it wasn't on like a drum set. Like it was just like a pad kind of setup. And I would, practice for the 3 hours. And then after that, there was a show that would come on TV called Bravo Jazz, where it was like an hour program that featured like, different performances from different festivals like Montreux or Montreal Jazz Fest, or, like a performance of whoever it was. And so I would sit down after practicing, watch this for 1 hour, and then I would go and do my homework. Right. So
Nice.
I did that for about like, the duration of a school year for us, like, which was like about 7 or 8 or so months. And then after that, more intense practice happened, but not for as long a period of time. And eventually, you know, throughout that time, even before that, I learned about mental practice, or just practicing in my mind and visualizing. And that's a big thing for me now for learning songs. And also, with the way life is working, where I have 2 young children who are currently sleeping right now. And, just understanding how to work the music out in my mind, how to beatbox it, and then take all of that and put it on the drums. And so that is actually most of my practice time, which is me returning to the way I used to practice. So I'm not often, behind my wonderful drum kit. This is my Phoenix drum kit with my spaceship of cymbals. But I get to play the drums at least a couple times a week, outside of the mental practicing. And I'm also, practicing other instruments. I play a little bit of keyboards. I'm working on writing some new songs. And I play some bass as well. And I also jam out with my kids. And so it's not always in front of the drums, but if I can connect to music, then I'm good to go. So definitely a musical connection every day with an instrument for the most part. And drums, it's not as often as I would love it to be, because that's the reality of life, especially, during COVID for me.
Right.
But yeah, like the mental practice is a big part of that.
Nice. And also, Lana, what about the drummers that you were listening to when you were growing up, and how did they kind of uh, affected your drumming and your music? Especially now because you're writing so much music as well. So how did that work out?
Yeah, so I get asked often my kind of top 5, top 3, top 1, top 20 list, and it's so hard for me to narrow it down, no matter the number, because I think what I learned was how to take influence, or how to be influenced and take inspiration from anybody, because it's like we're all on this journey with our instruments, right? All on this journey discovering music. somebody has figured something out that I have never seen before or never thought about, or is doing it in a completely different way. You know, like a lot of the stuff that you were doing in one of the videos I saw recently. And it's like, it inspires me. Like the drive inspires me, the
Yes.
sound inspires me, the freedom inspires me, you know? And so the drummers for me growing up, I didn't have access to, you know, internet wasn't a thing when I was growing up. We didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't get any like videos, you know, to be able to see a lot of drummers. And so I just had to watch the people in my community. And growing up in church, that was a really big deal for me, right? Just like when you
Right.
see a drummer coming in with another choir, or you go with your choir to another church concert and you get to see drummers playing, or you finally get to see someone that you've heard on an album live. And one of the major experiences for me with that was seeing this artist named John P. Key, and I got a chance finally to see this drummer I'd seen on TV, which was Calvin Rogers.
Yes.
So Calvin is one of my absolute favorites. And just watching him play and listening to the albums that he played on and hearing how he was always pushing the limits, and he would visit Toronto with different choirs and different artists. And as soon as he showed up and played the concert that night, the next day at church, everyone was probably playing all those fills that they'd seen, because there's just a crowd of us just sitting behind the drum kit, you know, and it's just high energy. Also my peers, you know, a lot of great drummers in this area. My brother, you know, is a great drummer. His name is Ricky Lewis. He's the drummer for The Weeknd. There's
Wow.
also Adrian Bent, who's the drummer for Drake, and Daniel Caesar. Currently, Otis Williams at Elevation Church. Shout outs to Leroy Fraser, you know, as well, like a major drummer here in the city. And yeah, and then, you know, when I went to school, I started to, you know, connect with other drummers. So there's Mark Kelso, you know, of course, there's Paul DeLong. Barry Romberg is another great drummer here in the city. And then I connected with some other mentors like Archie Aline, who unfortunately, he passed away about, I don't remember how many years, but he used to play for, you know, Count Basie Orchestra and like so many other jazz artists that he had connected with. And he took me under his wing, and I learned so much from him. And so basically, I'm listing drummers, but anyone that had
Right.
experience, anyone that lived anywhere, like if I could talk to you about drums, you know, that's a big thing for me. And I get to learn more about what drums look like from somebody else's eyes and ears.
Right. Right. So, Larnell, there's one thing about obviously, getting inspired and learning and trying to copy from your mentors or people, the drummers that you like. But how do you, as a drummer, kind of learn all those things and then unlearn those things to make your sound and your voice? What do you think about how do you go about something like that, where you kind of you've learned so much, from, especially now because of internet, there's so much information out on YouTube and on all these social media platforms that everybody's trying to get that, but somewhere they're losing their own voice. So any comments on that?
Absolutely. I feel like our voice is our voice. So as simple as that sounds, what that means to me is there are sounds that sound pleasing, right? There are rhythms that feel good to play and to do, that we have a tendency to do, that are comfortable. So I think those choices, the choices we make, are our sound. Now, we can hang out with a bunch of friends and we could all see the same TV show or the same movie, but we're all going to have our own perspective on it, right? There's going to be something that resonates
Yes.
with us. So, we might go to the movies and we might hang out, physically distanced right now, of course, right? Or we see the same movie on Netflix and then we talk about it and you tell me, well, man, like, I really enjoyed this part. It's like, oh, you know what? Now that you mention it, I remember that part and I didn't think about it that way. I thought about it this way. When it comes to music, the way I hear and see it is it's around me. I can observe it. I can imitate it, but I'm always going to have my own perspective. I'm always going to have, the way that I like the things that catch my attention and the things that I can replicate, because there's some things that I won't be able to replicate on the drums that other people are doing. And if I try, I might create a different way of doing it. So then that makes it my own. So there's just a lot of experimenting and trying and testing and observing. But when it comes to having your own sound in a time where it is so easy to see many, many, many angles of somebody's drumming from, you know, a wide range of years of their drumming. Like, it's cataloged, you know, very well now and documented now. You know, I think you could learn the rhythms and learn the way that people are playing, but like any conversation, when you learn a new word or a new phrase, you're just learning how and why the person decided to express themselves that way. And so if I learned a really popular phrase from another culture, I might say it randomly, but I might not understand the context. So understanding context is important. Understanding yourself is important. And knowing that no matter what, you are going to see and hear music the way you're going to see and hear it. And it's just about just observing another perspective. But yeah, like, I would just recommend listening, lots of listening, and attempting to play what you hear, and just taking the things that you really, really like, you know, and to me, that's a great start.
Wow. Amazing. Coming to obviously Snarky Puppy, there's so many questions about that. I don't know where to start. But how did that happen? How did the first gig happen? How did you go about learning the set? You know, and your first day with the band. Just some stories about that, if you can share it with us.
Absolutely. So I'll give two moments in time which are really important. So it's when I first met the band and connected, and then when I did the first recording, which was We Like It Here. And so when I first met the band, being in Toronto, there's a venue here called The Rex. And
Yes.
it's a bar, hotel, you know, and they have a, you know, nice small stage. I don't know how the band fit on there with all 100 of them.
Yeah, it's
But
pretty small. I've been there once. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, right? So it's like, how are you going to do this? So I had seen their videos. A couple of my students had been. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I think they may have even visited the school, and because I was teaching at the time, I wasn't able to see the performance.
Yes.
I think the album Tell Your Friends came out with their videos, and then eventually after that came, I think I had met the band, and then they had just dropped the Ground Up album. But anyway, so I was in a band at the time, and still am, called Rinse the Algorithm, and we were scheduled to play that same night that they were booked at the Rex. So everyone, when they came to the Rex, they were telling Snarky, you got to check out this drummer. So I think we did a jam session that first day where basically they played and then we played, and then we all played Teen Town together. The next day, they invited me on stage to play a song. It was Intelligent Design. On the set
Wow.
break, I got a chance to meet Sput, who I'd been listening to for years with God's Property, Kirk Franklin, and a bunch of other artists. And they basically taught me a song, taught me Intelligent Design on the break. They just said, okay, here's this section, it starts this way, there's a drum solo in it, then we're going to move to this, and then we're going to just basically hit this shot at the end and let the bass fade out with this particular riff it's doing. Did you get that? I was like, yeah, I think I got it. So they put me on stage, and I played the tune, I did the drum solo, and we just went like flying. And that was the start of the connection. And every time they came to town, if I was available, I would come and hang, you know, and if they had the space in their set, I would sit in for like 1 or 2 songs. And then they would actually start throwing songs at me while I was on stage. So then I had to start listening a little more to their catalog. So that's the first
Right.
period. Shortly after that, I did 1 gig with them in town. Well, I had done, overall before the recording, I had done at least, I think, 3 or 4 gigs with them. But the first gig I did, I had 5 days to learn 22 songs. And I put myself on a listening schedule where I listened to 5 songs roughly each day until the last day was 7. And then, or on the 4th day, 7. And then the last day, I just tested myself looking at the set list. and basically sat in and did the whole show, no rehearsal.
Wow.
And so that kind of is the beginning period. After that, when I got called to do the recording, you know, people ask often, like, is it true? Yes. I was given the songs super like last minute because they needed me to show up. I got on a plane, flew to Europe, and I only had that flight to learn the tunes because the night before the flight, I was doing a live recording with the Toronto Mass Choir. And so I had to learn the songs on the flight, landed. When I landed, as soon as I connected to the internet, thankfully, there was another song in my inbox for me to learn on the drive to the session.
Oh,
Did a
God.
rehearsal, the band, and then we just started, you know, we hit the concert and started recording. And so my brain was burning by the end of that week because the band had been there for at least 3 or 4 days prior to the recording, because some people were still writing songs, trying to work out all the parts, and they were just doing everything they could. But yeah, those are the two kind of major moments connecting with Snarky.
Nice. Also, it's one of the, I think, the only bands who manages to have, how do I say it, it's got a format in the song as well, but it still has the freedom in the song to play around as well. So
Hmm.
how do you, as a drummer, kind of take that and does that affect your learning process of the song as well compared to another artist where maybe it might be a pop act which is pretty much set and not much to kind of play around?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in the musical situations, again, I seek to find as much as I can what I believe to be the purpose of the song. And so if I can
Right.
connect with the purpose or the intention, then I know that I'm sitting in the same kind of headspace as everybody else. And if I'm in the same headspace and thought pattern, then my improvising and composition of a drum part will be more connected to what they're doing. So if I'm subbing in, it might, you know, I try to get the exact part, but even if I'm not getting the exact part, I'm still trying to fulfill the purpose of that drum part. And so when I'm improvising in that chair, I can still get a chance to push the music in the way that the composer intended. And so it was difficult to learn the songs in that scenario with Snarky, and I've been in other like pop type, you know, scenarios where I had to learn parts verbatim, you know, getting almost no time to learn the songs. And I'm talking about like a gospel artist showing up and I get like 3 hours notice, no charts, and I gotta learn like a 20-minute set. You know,
Wow.
coming in, their drummer stuck at the border, like I gotta get in there and play. And so, you know, where it's very specific, I do my best to kind of nail it. But I think at the end of the day, as long as I can be in the same mindset as everyone else, then I feel like I'm flowing a little closer to what's happening. And so it's not that much harder than a pop gig. I think pop gigs might be a little bit harder because the specifics just got to be,
Yeah.
you know, on point. But but yeah, like it's just once I'm able to fit in, and especially a band like Snarky Puppy, they will take my interpretation as long as they feel like I'm respecting the composition.
Wow. Also, Larnell, are you part of the songwriting process now in the last 4 or 5 years with the band? And how does that work? Like, you know, does Michael send you a basic format of the song, and then do they have anything like a programmed drums to give you a rough sketch on how they want to take it forward? And you know, if you can talk about that.
Absolutely. So actually, we're preparing to do a new record coming up this fall, and so it's a great opportunity to talk a little bit about that. So the way it works is right now, like I'm actually writing tunes, writing, you know, little bits and pieces and putting stuff together. And what everyone does is those that are writing, they will build a demo from start to finish and then send it to Michael League. Michael will go through it, and then once he finds the ones that really work together, he'll then talk to the composer and they will discuss how this could be laid out across the band, right? So then it becomes artist producer conversation.
Right.
Then once the demos are finalized, it gets sent out to the band in most cases, there's a rough drum part, and some people are not comfortable with it, so they'll just say, do what you want. Or some people will say, I need that drum part in particular, right? Because that makes the
Right.
song go. Whatever it is they choose is what they choose. But we still have the freedom. Once again, we respect the composition and know what the intention is of that part. It's okay for us to start working it out. And actually what we'll do, and I think we did for the last two in studio records, is Michael will have the drummers come up with a drum beat for a section. If the one that the composer made didn't work, he'll say, okay, Larnell, Jameson, JT, right? Or Larnell, JT, Spud, come up with a drum part right now. And they'll loop the section, and they'll give each drummer like 4 to 8 bars to play their idea. And then they'll go to me, then they'll let, Jameson play, then they'll let JT play, and then they'll come back to me, then to Jameson, then to JT. And basically
Wow.
we'll keep playing our parts and refining them as we go through until we and then Mike will say, okay, Jameson, I love the sound of your kit and what you're playing, so that's going to be up for this section. Let's move on. And we go to the next section. And we usually spend about half the day on one song, rehearsing and recording, right? Learning, rehearsing, recording. And then, copy, paste for the second part of the day where we just do the same thing over again. But yeah, like there's some, there's freedom for us to figure things out. Same with us kind of like recommending something happening in the keyboards, or, like the way we move, or suggest an idea for the whole band dynamically. So it's pretty free and open once the composer and producer have had their conversation and put the song forward.
Wow, that's some really cool insights about the songwriting thing. Also, the band changes. Sometimes there's a different guitar player, or as you said, there are so many different drummers. I've kind of seen Snarky Puppy live at BOMAD in about, I think, 2016. You still, how do you guys maintain that pocket of, even changing of the musicians on a constant basis? How does the band maintain that pocket? Like if you have another guitar player or a bass player, how would you react to that, for that change to happen?
Yeah, it is a change because, it's a different concept of, the way a keyboard player fills space, or, the way a guitar player, wants to use their pedals. But there are core parts to every song. And so if we don't have a certain guitar player or a certain drummer or a certain percussionist, everybody knows all the parts of the songs and basically starts to fill in the void for any part that might be missing, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So the best way to explain it is, as long as everybody knows every part of the song and they're comfortable and they can respect the composition, then coming in, Michael might say, okay, horns, can you play this part because we only have one keyboard player? Or guitar, could you play this part because, we only have 2 horns? Or, Larnell, can you play this part because, this percussionist that's here doesn't normally do that thing? Or, percussion, can you do this thing because the drummer doesn't normally do that? And we just kind of, fill in the gaps for each other with the compositions, trying to make it a different version of the same picture.
Beautiful, beautiful. Uh, Coming to the whole touring part, like what is your advice to drummers who are touring? I've heard a lot of stories about Snarky Puppy, wherein you guys record your set pretty much every gig, and I think by the time you're traveling to the next city, you are already listening to what's happened last night. So things like that, if you can give us a little insight on how does the touring scene works, and some advice for touring drummers.
Absolutely. So with Snarky, a collective of P1 musicians, a family
Wow.
of feels like over 100 musicians. You never know in whatever situation it is, what drummer is going to show up. They've actually had, or what musician, we've actually had Will Kennedy sub in as a drummer into snarky puppy, you
Wow.
know? And so that's like flavor and sound and vibe all together. And so my like the way the band works, first of all, it's one of the best touring experiences for me because everyone is at a different stage. People are saying hello. What's up? What's up? Hey everybody. Good to see you in the chat. um, yeah, so the best way to explain it is everyone is working on something at a different stage in their career. They are writing music, or they are about to record it, or they are about to get it mixed and mastered, or they're editing video, or they're about to promote it, or they're working on their tour schedule, or they are transitioning to this or that, or getting into education. So everyone's at a different place, but there's always somebody that you can talk to about something that you want to try out, experiment. And so that is an amazing experience. My recommendation is, if it is at all possible, if the venue doesn't stop you, record your set. Whether you have a GoPro or a camera or your phone or a recording device of some sort, record your set and then just take a listen to it, or take a look at it. And that's actually what I do for practice on the road. Visualizing and
Yes.
seeing what it is that I'm doing. I get a chance to hear how what I'm doing works for the music, right? I get to hear, okay, I felt a little bit lazy. I tried warming up with this, this technique. Did it feel good? It felt good, but is that the sound I want going forward? No. All right, I'm going to change this tonight. I'm going to make this change and this edit tonight, So we're in a different time where we can, as close to real time as possible or soon after, treat it like a recording session, and then you get another chance at it again the next day. So, the improvements for me have been amazing. I've learned so much about my sound from recording myself, generally speaking, but especially when you get another chance the following night to play a similar set of music, it really helps. I also would read books that talked about, other musicians that were touring. So like Peter Erskine's, No Beethoven is
Yes.
one that I got into. Another one that was really huge for me was Victor Wooten's The Music Lesson. And what I did with that
Yes.
was I would read one chapter every couple of days, and I would try to use the concept of that chapter to inspire the way that I made music for that couple of days. And then I would move on to another chapter. And so I would read, but then have the opportunity to actually express and experiment and try. And so that, along with seeing how it affected me on video or audio, just gave me a really, full chance to practice, because on the road, I don't have access to a drum set outside of being on stage. So that's my recommendation. And make sure you drink lots of water. Sleep is not always the greatest when you're on tour, but try to maximize your sleep. And what's the other thing I could say? Just make sure you're eating well. This is energy, this is fuel, and you're flying like
Yes.
crazy. You're moving around constantly. So those are the things I'd recommend. Just input into your mind, feeding your body, and just like, properly feeding your emotional state.
Awesome. Awesome. Uh, I think we just got about 5 minutes left. Oh my God, I didn't even realize it was coming close to an hour. Uh, we're going to do a quick Q&A. We asked, the drummers here in India of, asking you some questions. This one is from Manju from Bangalore. What is the thought behind, or what situation pushed you to use a splash symbol under your main crash, which I think you already answered, on the left-hand side, and the hybrid snare flow tom on the right-hand side? Why not use a separate snare drum on the left as we usually see, and use a regular 14-inch flow tom on the right side?
So with the snare drum, I learned that from Sput. He is somebody who used to play left-handed and now plays right-handed. And so
Right.
I think, along with him and a few other drummers in the Texas music scene, they were experimenting with sounds, and putting a low snare is something that they did there. So for me, technically getting around the drums, I wanted to keep that the same, so that I can, as I'm looking and learning the songs, I could flow in a similar way to the songs that he had recorded. And I had never done it before, and the sound was just awesome to me, and it was a change, so I just kept it. And the symbol under the splash under the main crash also, I got that from him. And in Snarky Puppy, we wanted to shorten the sustain of cymbals, which was very important. So stacking them made that possible.
Nice. Uh, this is another question from Sanket from Mumbai. What is your thought process for accompanying instrumentally in a trio space? I think what he's saying is with the piano and a bass. And how do you differentiate musically between artists like Robbie Botos or Laila Bali and Snarky Puppy?
Okay, so again, the aesthetic of the sound, I think understanding the personality of the artist and understanding the intention of their music, that helps me differentiate, you know, between like the kind of things that I might pull out as like phrasing or grooves, and even my cymbal selection, you know, just making sure that I'm able to get the right cymbals based on those artists, because you know, the way that one artist plays piano is going to be very different. And in a trio setting versus like a large band setting, there's so much more space in a trio setting. And we have to find that meeting ground, but still fill all that space, right? So if you think about 100% being filled up by 3 people, as opposed to like 100% getting chopped up in about like 7 to like 9 or 11 different ways, if it's Snarky Puppy, I then have to understand what parts I need to play and what space I need to leave open so that I leave room for everybody else. But in a trio setting, there's more room, there's more space, and I can fill it up however it is that I please.
Awesome. Well, this answers your question, Sanket. The next one is from Chiranjit. If you can just give us something like a basic exercise to work on speed, dynamics, and clarity.
Ooh. Quick exercise on speed, dynamics, and clarity. So for clarity, right? Clarity is very important to speed. And the reason why is if you play fast and you can't understand it, then it doesn't make any sense and it's not as impactful, right? So slowing things down and knowing exactly what you're doing and being able to sing what you play is very important. Also for clarity is being able to do those things not only at tempos, but also at different dynamic levels. So practice any of your musical ideas at a variety of tempos and a variety of volumes. And just keep in mind that you have to be able to sing it and hear it clearly when you're singing it. And that gives you a guide or something to connect to when you're playing it. So you know it's coming directly from your mind through your sticks.
Awesome. Okay, I think we've just got maybe the last couple of minutes before Instagram will just cut us down. One last advice to upcoming drummers, especially somebody who's into jazz fusion. Where do you think the overall scenario in the world when it comes to jazz music? Where is that heading? And any advices to them on going forward?
Jazz is, to me, is a style about experimenting. There is music that's coming from those who have laid down the pathway, laid the bricks down before, but jazz is about experimenting and it's about expressing. And so with what we have right now, take those components and express yourself. But if we're learning from the jazz masters, I think it's important to learn the context in which they were experimenting and expressing. And that might give a little more clarity to why they did what they did. And that hopefully will inspire you to now figure out how to make the most of your context and make the most of the components that you have access to and the music we have today, just to push your sound forward. The biggest lesson for me was to understand that my voice is my voice and I can't just change my voice necessarily. So I'm going to love it. I'm going to love my voice. I'm going to love my light. I'm going to love my experiences. I'm going to appreciate them. And I'm going to find the best way to package them that is suitable and appropriate for the musical settings that I'm in.
Wow. Just one last question. If obviously you're teaching on Drumeo and on other platforms, is there any way we can connect with you on a one-on-one lesson basis? Is that going to open up as well soon?
Yeah, well, right now, like everything is starting to bubble up, scenes like starting to move. So the best way to reach me definitely is here on Instagram, right? You can reach out, you can tag me, you know, I'm checking videos as often as I can. I'm also teaching at Humber College, and Drumeo is another place where I'm actually doing a lot of answering direct questions. So not only in the chat on our live lessons that we do, but also whenever you write under a video, I find your comment and I'm commenting and I'm writing right at you. I am, you know, responding with video clips from YouTube to maybe push another example forward. And so you can ask all the personalized questions you want and just get a little bit deeper, because that's the concept of coaches, right? We're just there
Yes.
to actually assist you on your path as you're moving forward. And so you can find me on Coaches, you can find me on IG. Yeah, and just like send your messages, send your clips, you know, I'll do my best to get around it. But the one-on-one lessons is just, at the moment, I had to put a pause on it. But you can definitely find me on Coaches.
Awesome, awesome. Larnell, thank you so much. You know, this has been an honor, and there's so much to learn from you as a person, as a human, but musically, and you know, just keep inspiring us. You know, we're just waiting for more and more music from you, more videos from you. And once again, a big thank you from Zildjian India, and for giving us your time.
Thank you so much. It was great meeting you. Again, love your drumming. And it was
Thank you,
an
sir.
awesome conversation. A lot of great questions from you and also from everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is amazing. And yeah, stay up. Love your light. Very important. Spread love. Very important. I hope that you're doing well. You know, I know it's a crazy time, but reach out to people, talk to people, connect with people. This drumming community is a perfect example of, you know, what I think we could do a lot more of in the world, which is just connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. It's a pleasure
Absolutely.
to be honored and to be here. Thank you. Thanks. See you guys. See you on the next weekend.
Absolutely. Take care, y'all.